like and subscribe. If you have a friend suffering from suicidal thoughts/depression, what do you do? If you ever need help, then please know that there are many qualified people who would like to help you. https://www. IASP. info/resources/crisis_centers. http www. befrienders.org/ http www. suicide prevention lifeline.org/jeffhelp/lifelinachat. aspects. http www. samaritans.org/howwecanhelpyou UK. https://www. lifeline.org. au/gethelp/au. There are crisis services worldwide that are trained to provide support. They are designed to give temporary relief from feelings that are overwhelming you, and while they are unlikely to fix any underlying problems, can help you get through a tough hour/night/week. Chat services are usually available on these sites. In the US, calling 211 or going to their website is a free referral source. They have providers who will see you regardless of your ability to pay. Just as you would see a doctor when you are sick, you deserve to take care of your mental health. I've been doing this with my partner for almost a year now, and we are doing a lot better. This does work, maybe not immediately, but it does help. I'm honestly kind of afraid how negative and hopeless my generation is, because all that bad that could happen because we feel too hopeless to actually do anything about it. We are so addicted to dystopian stories as a culture, that an actual dystopian world might become a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is rude as hell. Silence, maybe and hug, is way better than this crap. So 8 years ago, my best friend of 18 years committed suicide. I never noticed anything was wrong until the day I found out he had passed. After that, hindsight was 20/20, and I couldn't believe I never noticed all the hints that were there all along. I spent a long time blaming myself. I noticed them now, why the hell didn't I notice them before? But, at the end, there was nothing I could do about it anymore. My friend was gone. So, instead, once I quit blaming myself, I made a vow. From then on, I wouldn't let it happen again. Anytime somebody I knew was showing any of the signs I had come to recognize, I reached out to them. Even if it was somebody I didn't know super well. I've now done it 3 times. Once for a former co-worker who had been laid off, once with a university classmate who was having trouble in her marriage, and once with a high school classmate who I noticed posting some very strange things on Facebook. Hadn't spoken to him in years, but we knew each other, and he knew my friend who had died. Here's the advice I would give. 1. Right off the top, most important, you gotta let them know you see them struggling, and that you are on their side. Don't do it in a confrontational way. It can start with something as simple as "is everything alright?" Make sure they know you're not trying to intrude and insert yourself, but that you want to help. My go-to line has always been, if you don't want to talk about it, you can tell me to butt out, but I wanted to make sure everything's okay. And then if they tell you to butt out, you well butt out, but ended with, if you ever need to talk to somebody, just know I'm always here. 2. If they do open up to you, just listen to them. Don't try to resolve their issues for them because, unless you're a trained psychologist, you're not equipped to do that. If they tell you, for example, that their girlfriend broke up with them, say that's terrible, tell me what happened, not that's terrible, what can I do to help? In certain cases, people just need to vent all their frustrations and they need a person who is just going to listen to them. Not make all their go away, but listen and truly feel sympathetic to them. Just knowing somebody cares enough to actually listen to you is a very reassuring thing. 3. If they start telling you things that are causing their depression, under absolutely no circumstances whatsoever should you tell another living soul about it. Even if the person that is causing them to have suicidal thoughts is somebody you know. Even if you think that person would be reasonable about it. Even if you think you can resolve the issue by telling somebody else. Don't do it. They opened up to you and only you. If they wanted somebody else to know, they would have told them. 4. Encourage them to get some help, if at all possible. One of the biggest issues is that they think getting help makes them weak. The stigma is starting to lift, but it is definitely still there. If you think they're a very serious threat to themselves, then try everything you can to break down that stigma and convince them to get some help. Those are my 4 points. I hope they are helpful. These are the steps I have followed, and I like to think, have been somewhat successful to varying degrees over the past 8 years. I know it can seem daunting to put yourself out and offer to help your friend in need, but I promise you that it's worth it, and a lot better than the alternative. Also, make sure to look after yourself in this process. Being there for a depressed and/or suicidal person is not easy. Once they start opening up, you might hear some things that are very dark, and that you may not have wanted to hear. And hearing those things can bring some darkness into your own life too. So always make sure you are looking after yourself too. If you need any other advice, or want help writing a message or something to your friend, you can always DM me. I'm always happy to help, even if it's a complete stranger. Psych here. These are some of the things my clients have found most helpful. Listening without judgment or giving advice. This above all. Reassuring them that you are there for them. Reaching out and staying in touch, as they might not be able to reach out to you. When and if they are ready, suggesting, gently, you do a simple, easy activity you enjoy together. Internally, value their company/existence. They probably can't see any value in themselves in their current space. If you feel comfortable doing so, ask them more questions about it. It is especially important to ask if they have a plan or means to fulfill their plan, as these can be signs that they are considering attempting soon. Here is a good article summarizing some advice and linking to some really great resources. https://www.npr.org/section/2019/04/2070686101/how to help someone at risk of suicide. You should definitely consult the experts on this one. I sincerely hope your friend pulls through. They're lucky to have a friend like you in their life. People who are depressed often become silent. They'll stop texting, calling, and using social media. That is when you need to reach out and pull them back into your circle and hug them tighter. There is usually a reason why. Finding out may be tough, but you might just save a life if you sit down and listen to them. Edit. I appreciate all your responses and awards. Great dialogue going on here. I want to add, approaching a friend who's a bit isolated. Be gentle, non-judgmental, and ready to listen without commenting unless they ask. Here's an example. Hey man, I care about you a lot. You know that, right? I am worried you might be sad and going through this on your own. Do you want to talk about what's going on? If not, that is totally cool. Let us do something fun instead. If so, gently ask about depression. Ask to recap, sleep, loss of interest, guilt, energy, concentration, pleasure, and if they are depressed, encourage them to see a doctor as soon as possible. And after that, be the best friend you are to them, or best neighbor you can be to them, or best classmate, whatever role you play in their life. Do the best thing someone can do. Be there for them, and listen to what they say. Don't offer some advice to them, or tell them it gets better, but instead give them someone to lean on in their times of trouble. And I can say this for sure, having been someone who was helped out of depression and suicide by just someone who stood there, listened to what I had to say, and God, it felt so much better. Listen to them. Legitimize and acknowledge their suffering. Offer kind words and support. Acknowledge your limitations in your ability to help them. Offer to help them find a therapist. Encourage them to see medical professionals who can prescribe medication and give them a diagnosis. Source: I'm suicidal friend. What I would like. Just be there for us and let us get stuff off our chest. You don't need to say you know how it feels or come up with solutions. Just being able to talk and not be interrupted is enough sometimes. Hey Opus. I have friends that have taken their own lives. The amount of suffering that they go through is intense, and it might be more than you can handle. It's okay if you need space now and then. It takes a lot of emotional labor to help someone in that position. Recognize your own efforts as you make them, because your friend may be unable to appreciate it in the moment. It's not their fault. Depression can be straight up blinding. It's important to keep in mind that their actions aren't your fault, and not to blame yourself if they get angry or frustrated with your help. They probably don't want to feel that way either. Thank you for caring. Acknowledge the fact that they're depressed. Tell them that you're there for them if they feel like going out again. Offer help with practical stuff if they need any. Don't force them to do fun things. Don't tell them to cheer up. Only worry when they appear suddenly at peace with the world and depression seems totally gone. It is not uncommon for suicidal people to have a short tranquil phase when they have decided to end it all and are at peace. I was in this position a while ago, had a plan, the looping thoughts that it was the only way to end the pain I was feeling. I knew there was something not right with me, so I found a good therapist which gave me someone to talk to, as problems this deep pushed away anyone who tried to help me, because they didn't have the right words or capacity to deal with it. A year later I'm doing much better. Professional help is the way to go. In contradiction to many of the armchair psychologists here. Just don't be a pain in the about it. As someone who's been there, in fact, spent months of this year crying daily, being someone who nags them to get help, or keeps going on about how therefore you are, and constantly wants them to confront things, it can easily make you a pain in the that's just resented. It's about as useful as people who are always posting suicide hotline numbers. If you really want to do it, you're not calling someone to talk you out of it. I really suggest just sticking with being the kind of friend that made you friends in the first place. Most people don't become friends because they met someone and started having deep personal conversations about their problems. They become friends because of the enjoyable good times they've spent together. Common interests? Like to go out and have a beer, shoot some pool together, go bowling. Just go with that and invite them to do those things. Even go as far as no. Mon man. We used to have so much fun. Nobody else wants to go with me. Yes, making it about you and taking the spotlight off of them is a good thing. It doesn't matter what brought you together in the first place. It could be anything from quantum mechanics discussions to a love for beer. Just bring them back to those better days. Be a reminder of what life was when they weren't feeling so bad. Don't force them to get into their reasons. They'll bring it out when ready. Maybe hint around about how you see they've been having a rough patch. That's when you get to be that person they get deep with. As someone who has battled suicidal ideation for the majority of his adult life, the second point should be bolded and italicized. It's so important to have someone who will just listen. The worst is when people tell you they'll listen and then just vanish. It's the worst, because you know the world doesn't revolve around you, but you're still angry, because it feels like people just keep abandoning you. It sucks. Having someone who will listen is just so helpful. Having someone who also sets clear boundaries is helpful, at least to me. If someone clearly tells me now is not a good time for event session, I know I'm not being totally ignored. Best of luck, you/napkin finger, and God bless you for doing what you can. Thank you for the long explanation. I'm sorry your friend did that. I am glad you are feeling better and now making others' lives better. Thank you for taking the time to write this. 3 years ago I went through a terrible breakup where we remained in the same house together for a few weeks. During that time, she was going through all her stuff. I wanted to give her privacy, so I didn't meddle in anything she was doing, and just thought she was packing and organizing. Then I got a text from her that said something like, "I'm so sorry to have done this to you." It turned out to be a delayed text. She had checked into a hotel and taken a huge amount of pills around 20 hours before I got the text. In her 35-page long suicide letter, she had given me quite a few final requests. One was to distribute her things out as she had requested. When I went into the bedroom she was using, she had not been packing, but organizing all her things into labeled piles for different people in her life. The thought that she brazenly did this right under my nose and I didn't pick up on it was one of the worst parts of the whole experience for me at the time, but I have come to understand that she leveraged the fact that she knew I wouldn't invade or snoop, and that if I had been more attentive she would have been more private about it. She also had bagged up a huge amount of bathroom products, makeup, lotions, etc., and just threw them away. When I asked her why she was throwing perfectly good stuff away, she told me she didn't need them anymore. I of course thought she meant that she was getting rid of extraneous stuff because her lifestyle was about to drastically change. I worked, she didn't. Long story. Of course, she meant she wasn't going to be around to use it. In her suicide letter, she talked about how she knew it seemed silly, but she wanted to look pretty when she passed, that she planned on putting on makeup. I remember reading that and wondering what makeup she had left. For some reason, of everything written in that letter, which was full of very pointed comments, that I was the reason she was gone, the comment about looking pretty when she died is the thing that still haunts me the most. Anyway, I think I have done a pretty good job of letting go of most of my guilt, both self-imposed and imposed by her. But it's still hard to sometimes wonder how it never occurred to me that she was considering suicide. Sometimes I think I was just so relieved and looking forward to my new life without her that I pulled the wool over my own eyes. Sometimes I think I was just so happy that her issues were no longer going to be my issues. I was getting a jumpstart on not caring anymore. Either way, while I still do occasionally reflect on those experiences, I think I have my role in the whole thing in perspective. I didn't make her make the decision she did, but I take responsibility and accept that I played a major role in leading up to her decision. We were together over 10 years, so I don't think it would be healthy for me to ignore the fact that I played the starring role in her life, from her being a successful and happy person to her being a non-functional and depressed person. My amazing friends and family of course exonerated me from all wrongdoing at every opportunity, but if I agreed I feel like I'd be lying to myself, and I don't want to do that. So, this is the part where I normally delete this post. I feel like I have written similar comments on similar Reddit threads hundreds of times, and I always hit cancel when I'm done. I think just the act of typing it out is cathartic enough, but I'm going to let this one ride. By the way, we saved her. I called the police and told them everything I knew and where I thought she could be. I even turned the suicide letter over to the police. The amazing people I was with when I got a text immediately split up the list of hotels in the area and started calling them one by one. We found her within 2 hours of me receiving the text. She was alive, but unconscious and unresponsive. She spent a few days on respirator and eventually regained consciousness. I have no idea what she is doing today, and I haven't spoken to her since, but I do hope she found a way to turn it around and is doing well. I hope you will have mercy on yourself and that you will forgive yourself. When I teach suicide prevention trainings, before we ever start, I tell my audience that suicide affects everyone. I tell them that I do not always know who is in my audience and what their life experiences have been. I then tell them to extend mercy and forgiveness to themselves and to not blame themselves for things that happened in the past prior to attending the training. We often equate suicide prevention with CPR. You only know what you know when you know it. Prior to being trained in suicide prevention, you did not possess the knowledge and skills to help someone, and you cannot hold yourself accountable for things that you did not know in the past. You are an amazing person. This, right here. I was suicidal for most of 2020 and some of 2021. Finally coming out of it. My friends all did this, and it saved my life. Thank you. It is great to get a response from a professional. Thank you for all you do for your patients. You are amazing. Thank you for all the kind words. I'll check that link out right now. I feel very uncomfortable giving people advice when they are dealing with things I don't understand. I've been depressed and had problems, but no one has the identical problems and identical depression. It feels fake and I don't appreciate it, don't me? I do agree with you about asking questions though. I always thought it would be too forward, but when I started I found that people more often than not very much want to talk more. And if they don't want to talk, they will say it without highlighting anything against you, likely even getting back to it. I also learned this recently. Friends shouldn't stop themselves from just talking either, out of fear they have nothing smart or deep to come up with in that moment. Really, no one needs you to have perfect well-written words and sage advice. You can still just talk to your friend about random stuff that pops into your head, share funny things, discuss unrelated stuff. Your friend might appreciate the distraction, and if they can't get into it, they'll still prefer hearing from you than not. And even a simple, but regular "how are you feeling today?" is okay. I think it's more important for a person to know they have someone who thinks of them and cares for them, which is demonstrated through time, rather than to get some perfectly worded reply with advice they probably are already aware of, that just seems to push them on to someone else, pushing too much about therapy and medical professionals. An important misconception / fear to address about this, asking people if they feel suicidal, and if they have a plan *****, not make them more likely to attempt it, or put the idea in their head *****. This is backed up by research. It's an incredibly hard thing to do, but it's also incredibly important, and it could well save their life. The important thing is to ask the question, and actively listen, non-judgmentally. Allow them to talk about their thoughts and feelings without interrupting or telling them to get over it, and especially don't say anything like they are selfish or morally wrong, even if you believe so, because that will not help, and will most likely do harm. For the record, I believe it is much more nuanced and situation dependent than the black and white many seem to view the topic. This is the correct response. Back when I was a kid, my best friends all left me once I stopped being fun. Being abused tends to make a person less fun to be around. The only thing I'd add is that it's so important that they don't feel alone. You don't have to carry this on your own, but don't let your friend feel like everyone has turned their backs on them in their time of need. It makes it so much worse. Yes, asking about suicidal thoughts is not a bad idea, but you should keep two things in mind. 1. Thinking of it is one thing, but it is really hard to actually do it. Just because a person is thinking about it does not mean they are actually going to do it. By you asking about it and them talking about it, you are actually taking off the pressure and making them less wanting to do it. Don't freak out when they tell you to. Don't beat around the bush, and try to tease it out, and don't be judgmental about it. It takes a lot of courage and trust to say yes, I would like to not live anymore. If they fear you might call 911 on them, or judge them, they might not be honest to you, or stop being honest. Just be inquisitive, genuinely interested and understanding. As the depressed friend, this is exactly right. Depressed people often isolate themselves because they don't want how they feel to propagate onto their friends, which they think will make their friends start to hate them. You need to keep talking to them, even if they don't reply, or just give one-word answers. Just keep sending them messages. You might not think it is helping, but I can assure you it is. Yep. Listen, show sympathy, and tell them they can always come to you if they needed anything. I used to work for the suicide hotline, and this is the exact approach we were trained to take. Thank you for the response. Thanks for asking, TBH. I will try not to be too hard on myself. Thanks for the comment. As someone who has battled suicidal ideation for the majority of his adult life, the second point should be bolded and italicized. It's so important to have someone who will just listen. Listen and not just negate your feelings. Oh, this isn't such a big deal. Cold been worse, that's nothing, here's what happened to me blah blah. My I'm favorite was Peter, your arguments just aren't convincing to me. After I told a friend of mine that I tried to commit suicide and why I did it, never spoke to her again, but it's been 3 years and those words still pop up when I try to fall asleep. It feels like people just keep abandoning you. That's exactly what happens. The best way to find out if you're depressed is to count the number of people who smile at you when they see you are happy to see you. My unsubstantiated guess is that suicide is a very lonely business. That doesn't work all the time at all. I have major depressive disorder and near daily suicidal ideation, but my friends still smile when they see me and enjoy my company. My friends have talked me out of suicide more times than I care to admit. Suffice to say I love them all and appreciate them more than they could ever understand. One thing I would recommend, and this may seem counterintuitive, is, unless you are concerned for their immediate safety and well-being, do not send them to an emergency room. Areas have to take extreme measures whenever there is a concern for suicide, and most personal rights and liberties are stripped from patients the moment they express suicidal thoughts. There is a difference between suicidal thoughts/ideation and actively suicidal. If you are unable to tell the difference, it is better to be safe than sorry, but if you can, and they are not actively suicidal, then try to get them to seek help through a counselor/therapy. Areas should be your last resort. They often cause more harm and trauma than good. Source: worked in an for many years. How did your friends know? Did you tell them, or did they work it out? I've been depressed to the point of suicidal a few times in my life, but I've always isolated myself from friends during those times, and so understandably never got that support. I did share with some of them. I laid it all out for my sister. I trust her, and she was having a hard time too. We made a pact: as long as one of us was alive, the other wasn't allowed to end it. She promised me her life, and I promised her mine, forever. That honestly helped a ton. All the days I thought about doing it, I thought of my promise to my sister, and how much it would destroy her. She needed me, my nieces needed me. That was enough of a reason to just cry it out, and wait for tomorrow to come around. Some of them just knew, though, because I wasn't myself. I'm pretty upbeat, overall, and one of my close friends noticed that I wasn't smiling anymore. He did his best to make me smile, showing me funny memes or just hanging out and shooting pool with me, so I wouldn't be alone. Eventually I did tell him how I was feeling, and it actually brought us closer together as friends. He went from trying to make me smile to checking if I had eaten that day. I'm a recovering anorexic. My depression kicked it into high gear, and I lost 20 pounds. He would buy me food, or share his meal if I hadn't. He would call me when I got home from the pool hall, and stay on the phone with me until I fell asleep on the bad days, even if we weren't even talking, just to make sure I didn't do it that night. My other friends did similar things. Always checking to see if I ate, if I had gotten enough sleep, demanding that I go home and sleep if I looked tired, asking if I wanted a workout buddy when I was ready to go back to the gym, huge part of my self-care routine, and just generally being there for me, but simultaneously demanding nothing of me. And perhaps that's what helped the most. My social circle didn't ask me to be anything but me. They expected little emotional effort, and understood that I had little effort to give. I'm very lucky. I have a huge network of friends, and if I ever asked for folks to keep an eye on me, they would. Reach out please. If you're ever feeling suicidal, please just reach out. Wait until tomorrow, and reach out today, and know that I love you. Just to add on, whether you are comfortable with asking these questions or not, know that if you continue to have conversations about them self-harming, and you are feeling uncomfortable, it is okay to say I have provided all I can, and suggest you can call a hotline, together or separately, or make an appointment with a therapist. There is often lots of free services for this. You do not have to shoulder the burden of their feelings and choices. That is ultimately something they have to work on for themselves. I think it is best not to even give them advice, unless they're asking for it, or you're a therapist/doctor. Your worldview is probably so different from their suicidal worldview, that any advice that seems reasonable to you would seem outrageous to them. Instead, it is more productive to converse with them in a friendly way that does not stray too much from their worldview, and that friendly conversation could gradually help them come up with the advice themselves of better ways to think. It's not even that I feel they will start to hate me. I know they won't, because they're all good people. It's just that it's going to bring the mood down. And why the would I want bring my friends or family's mood so low? What the? Had a rear argument or no convincing to matter. That is like a real way sunny in Pilado PIO level line right there. Edit. I have been through something similar, and know sort of what you feel or felt. It sucks. I am not saying that to invalidate you, just to remind you you aren't alone. It sucks. But it gets better, it takes time. This is the most heartwarming thing I've read in a while. Onions. You have some amazing friends, and I'm glad you're still here. You've been visited by the ghost of a very important man. Pay your respects by liking and subscribing, and he'll grant you 3 weeks of good luck.